How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to LUMIX Live. It has been quite a while since I've been back, between various trade shows and just a really oddly long and busy time between WPPI, NAB, and then I had to go do a training for Best Buy staff. It's just been crazy. I haven't traveled this much in probably around 4 or 5 years. It was prior to the pandemic, so I had to take a little bit of time off because the jet lag was getting to me. I missed my family and my dog, so I needed a little bit of time off. But I am super excited to be back. We're gonna be back on a regular schedule now moving forward. So yes, welcome to LUMIX Live. These are the weekly live stream. Oh, these are the scheduled live streams that we do. We try to be weekly, where you get to ask us questions, check out some of the cool stuff that we're doing, and just have a direct touch point with us, with the brand, so you can get your voice heard directly by people that actually can make differences in stuff like that. So I'm trying something out new on the stream today. I think one person has already caught it. DJ caught it, asking if I am using an anamorphic lens for this stream, and actually, I am. We are streaming this in anamorphic, and I actually want to talk about that. That's one of the things I want to talk about on the stream today, because I found out it's never been easier to do this than it is right now. And I feel kind of dumb because I haven't done this any sooner. But yeah, I want to talk about the lens I'm using. I am on my S5 Mark II, and we're just using OBS and, well, in this case, Streamlabs, but it's OBS, to kind of talk about that and walk y'all through some of the steps, because there's something cool about streaming in a way that maybe others aren't. And using the cameras and what we have at our disposal to set your stuff apart from everybody else's. Aside from talking about that today, we're going to be just open general AMA. We're going to kind of ease back into the live streams. My brain is still a little bit recovering from all of the travel and stuff, so yeah. Let's kind of go at it. If you've got questions, make sure to tag at LUMIX USA. We will try to answer as many of them as we can. As we've said on many of these streams before, if you are new to this, if your question relates to future things or firmware or any of that kind of stuff, unfortunately, I will not be answering stuff like that because I have no clue. At least for the most part, I have no clue. So if you got questions about how to set things up on your cameras, feature requests, things that you want to see us do in the future, definitely drop those in the chat. It helps us get that information to our engineers. More importantly, drop those in the comments of the video afterwards, because then it's something I can point back to with the engineering team and the product planning teams, so that your voices can be heard. I want to point out to everybody, LUMIX Pro Services here in the US, we have two tiers. We have the red tier, which is free. So if you've bought a LUMIX camera, make sure to follow the QR code right below me there. And you can get yourself registered on LUMIX Pro Services. If you're someone who likes a higher level of service and support, you can take a look at the Platinum tier. That gets you your 3-year extended warranty, just like the red tier does. But on top of that, you get 20% off out of warranty repairs. You get 2-day repairs with next day shipping both ways. You also get access to annual cleanings and service of the cameras to keep them in the top shape that you need. And you also have access to a membership hotline. So if you prefer to speak to someone on the phone, you have full access to that. And yeah, you don't have to go through chat or email that way if you don't want to. So that out of the way, let's kind of jump into it. As I said, if you got questions, tag at LUMIX USA, and it just helps me find them and we can kind of go through it. But one of the first ones that came in here was, is there a timeline for when LUMIX Flow will be compatible with the S5 II? I have a trip to Monument Valley and would love to use the smartphone via Flow app to control my camera. At this particular time, I don't have information about when Flow is going to come to the S5 II, S5 IIX, or the GH7. We are planning support for it, but I just haven't gotten any of the updates as far as like when the timelines are going to be on that. Obviously, as soon as we know and we're ready to push the updates, you'll get a notification about it. But yeah, nothing at this point right now. You still can use LUMIX Lab if you're looking just for camera control. So you do have that access at least. And you actually have more camera control in LUMIX Lab than you have in LUMIX Flow at this point. So just maybe keep that in mind, Steph. S. Kelly says, will we ever see custom exposure bracketing? We've asked about it a lot. I don't know if or when something like that's gonna get added to the cameras. But it is something that is under discussion, determining how to deploy it, what the best way to deploy stuff like that is, if it's even possible to deploy. So I wish I had a better answer for you. I know that's something that people have been asking for quite some time, but at this moment I don't have any. DJ, welcome back. Hope you don't mind us blasting questions. Power zooms, Pancake Prime, Super Telephoto for L mount. The cameras yearn for it. Yeah. Ask questions away. If it's something that I can't answer, obviously I can't answer it, but feel free to ask away. The follow-up was, we talked about it over Discord, possibly over a section on Lumix app, for everyone to share their LUTs. Maybe featured creators can get their own tab under featured. Let's fill it up. So we have been talking about, how does Lumix Lab expand, especially when it comes to the LUT sharing functionality. As of right now, Lumix Lab and the downloads of the creators tab is still basically a curated list. I've said this over on the Discord before, but I'll reiterate here. The reason for a lot of that is a couple of fold. For one, when you generate a LUT, there are things that you have to do to make sure that it, one, can tell the camera, hey, you need to be in this color profile. And it's not the most apparent thing to do. So as LUTs are getting created onto there, they're being QC'd, they're being checked to make sure that they fall within the guidelines of what needs to be done. We're making sure that they're actually in the right format. Because one of the other things is that a lot of people will throw like a 65 point LUT on the camera, and the cameras don't like that. You need 33 point or 17. So if it were to just open up and allow everyone to just load in whatever they want to, it can very quickly become an unmanageable situation of, well, this LUT looks cool, but it only works in this very specific way, and it's not tagged right. And ultimately, if there are ever any issues with that, it's us that has to take the conversation with it. So we need to make sure that it has enough, kind of guides in place and sets in place so that if and when we do open that kind of concept up with it, that it's very user-friendly for uploading, very user-friendly for accessing, clear to identify whether or not this is a creator LUT or this is an open community LUT. The dynamic changes when you're doing it on a formal official platform from a camera brand. There's a lot more that has to be thought about to make sure that everyone's experience is a good experience. But we are looking into how do we build that with this and go to where we kind of really want to go with stuff like the LUT community. So we're not there yet. There are a ton more in the platform now than there were at launch. I think there's something like 40 creators and something like 160 LUTs in there. So we've doubled the number of LUTs that are on the platform since the initial launch of it. And I think we've doubled the number of creators as well. So it's growing. The notification systems also come online with it too. So when new LUTs and new creators are added, you should get a notification that says like, hey, new stuff's been added. But yeah, that's just kind of where Lumix Lab is currently with the LUT system. Doesn't mean we're not going to go down that route. It's just there's a lot of steps in place to make sure that it's a good experience for everybody. DJ, keeping this topic as clean as possible. Lumix policy on gear prices post tariffs. Will those change? Unfortunately, I have no comment at this time. Why no raw files work in DaVinci? I would get more GH7 if so. I think you mean ProRes RAW. You'd have to talk to Blackmagic and DaVinci about that. Why ProRes RAW is not supported. That's not something we have control over. Yeah, that's fully a Blackmagic and DaVinci conversation. So if you're someone who shoots with cameras with ProRes RAW and you really want that support in Resolve, go to Blackmagic's socials and make it known that you want it from them as well to have access to it. So D, I'm considering purchasing the S1R Mark II. However, I'm concerned about overheating. Do you know if this will be addressed? So addressed is not a term I would use. The S1R Mark II is functioning the way it is designed to, the way that it is expected to. What is happening now, and I think it's becoming more apparent. Do I have one here? Yeah, I do. What you're seeing now, as far as the fact that there are some people that say that they have overheating with the camera or have experienced overheating, as opposed to people like myself where I don't run into overheating with the camera. Same if you look at the general creators out there, that there's a lot of them that they never have overheating, so it's not an issue. For some it is. The biggest thing is going to come down to what media cards you're using. I learned recently while I was at NAB from a number of people out there that have done tests between various different cards that actually sticking to the validation lists that we publish on it is kind of an important thing when it comes to CF Express media. So I have two cards here. Now I'm on the anamorphic lens, so I can't really bring these close because I don't have a diopter and the close focus is not that great. But I have two CF Express cards right here. I have one that is a validated card, and I have one that is not a validated card. There are massive differences between the performance on these two cards. You may think CF Express is kind of equal across the board just because it's a format, but it is not. It is actually pretty far from it. We validate media in our cameras based on a number of criteria. One of the main ones is thermal performance. There are a lot of CF Express card manufacturers out there that either don't have thermal protections built into them, or they just straight up tell the camera, give me as much power for as much throughput as you possibly can give me. That means that that card is going to run really hot. That adds to heat buildup inside the camera, which leads to potential overheating problems. When we validate a card and we say that this card is good to use, it means that we have done those thermal checks and we have communicated with those brands to understand where their stance is and what their control systems are in place to prevent things like that. So I will use SanDisk as the great example. There's really two in my mind that are the gold standard. It's SanDisk and Next Storage. SanDisk, who's been an amazing partner of ours over the many number of years since the S5 II launch, has two series of CF Express cards. They have the Pro Cinema cards, like you see here, and then they have the Extreme series, which are the more traditional black and red designed cards. On our validation site, we clearly call out the Extreme series, the red and black cards, have the potential to overheat and cause thermal shutdown on your recording. We've published that since the GH7, so you can get by with them in most environments. But if you're here in, say, Austin, and we're at 87 degrees Fahrenheit right now, it's actually kind of cool for this time of year. Or if I was in, like when I was in Las Vegas, if it's like 90 degrees, 100 degrees out, yes, we rate our cameras to run up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, but if your card has no thermal protection, you're just adding heat into the system. SanDisk in the Pro Cinema series cards doesn't have those problems. So their internal controls of power leveling and speed leveling to make sure that they're at a more manageable heat threshold becomes very critical. No other camera brand is pushing the data rates like we do in the cameras. So, of course, when you get to a camera like the S1R Mark II, you're potentially seeing that, oh, you know, some of these cards that are adding extra heat pushes it over the thresholds for testing. Now, on the other side, I have this Angelbird card. Now, there's nothing really against Angelbird. I like the brand. I like what they've been doing. But I cannot recommend an Angelbird card in a Lumix camera because their cards run way hotter than the Next Storage or the SanDisk cards, which means I know I'm going to run into problems with this. I say all of that because when I've done troubleshooting for users on even the GH7s, where they've had thermal issues, which come out of left field because the GH7's kind of known as, you know, we really don't have thermal problems in that camera. The singular point that has in like 99% of my conversations, literally like 99% of my conversations, I think one out of the probably 20 that I've done over the last 6 months, only one hasn't been related to this, has been because they're using Angelbird media cards. So hands down, unless Angelbird submits in for validation or they update their cards to have better thermal management, or at least some sort of ability to manage the thermals, the read speeds, and the power consumption, I cannot recommend these cards within our camera. So if you're concerned about overheating in the cameras, one, look at the user manuals. We do call out very specifically expected run times, especially in an S1R2. Make sure that you're using validated media, because once you go off a validated media list, if you start using some other cards that aren't validated, there's nothing we can say because we don't know what that card's performance is going to be. Those are the steps that can kind of take in place. From the product's perspective, it's performing as it's been designed and as we've outlined it to. The big variable is media in that case. So, yeah, highly recommend either the SanDisk Pro Cinema cards or the Next Storage B2 Pro Series cards. They're my two favorite cards right now within the cameras, and I have not experienced overheating issues, even down here in Austin. If you shoot under direct sunlight and you're not covering your camera from direct sunlight, you can almost get any camera to overheat. Infrared heat is way worse than the ambient temperature heat because cameras are rated for ambient temperature. So also keep that in mind. Keep the camera shaded. Don't put it out in direct sunlight because you've got a black camera that's just going to absorb even more heat. But yeah, that's kind of where I'd point you with thermals. D. Let's see here. Mark says, is there a way to have constant preview when using a flash on the S5 II? So the S5 II uses our older constant preview system. So there isn't a way to simulate exposure if you have constant preview on. You'd basically have to turn the camera off. But even then, when you put a flash on it, it is doing constant preview. It is literally telling you if I'm shooting at 200th of a second at, say, f5.6 at 200 ISO, and I'm using the flash to actually fill the whole exposure, it is giving you constant preview because that exposure combination is not accounting for strobe. When you go to things like the S1R Mark II, we have fixed that. Mostly fixed it. We are now in alignment with like how Canon, Nikon, and Sony all do this kind of thing. If you look outside of Lumix and you go to different camera brands, and I think Manny Ortiz did a really good video on this. If you look at how other brands handle constant preview or what some of their limitations are when you're using a flash, every brand's got our own logic on what we think the right way to do it is. Some of them require toggling it on and off, depending on whether you got a flash on there. I don't know of any that automatically does it exactly the way everybody wants it to. But that's just kind of how it works right now. S5 II, it's the older system. S1R Mark II now has the new system for constant preview. So, Cliff, unfortunately, I have no comments on how anything with tariffs or anything like that goes. Sorry, man. Is it normal that after the last firmware update I can't connect to LUMIX Lab? It shouldn't be doing that. One of the things, a troubleshooting thing that I recommend for people, if after a firmware update you're ever running into issues, there is a line in the firmware update page that it's kind of like the terms of service for Apple iTunes. Like the ones that just no one reads any of that stuff. This is not a shot at anybody in particular. I don't read any of them either. But I've learned enough over the years. Like literally, I just rolled over 10 years with Panasonic, so I've had a lot of experience with this. Anytime you do a firmware update on anything, you should restart or reset the device. Your phones do this when you do an update on your phone because it restarts the phone. That's clearing out all of the old code. It's making sure that there's nothing remaining so that when it boots back up, everything is the way it's supposed to be. Cameras are kind of the same thing. They do restart, but you really, especially if you've got like new features added to it, do a reset on the camera. This is going to reset everything from all your main camera settings to your network connections to custom setups, all that stuff. We do have the ability to save your camera settings out, so you can save them, do the reset, and then reload them. The reason for that is that you can run into things where, like, maybe we've done efficiencies on the communication between the camera and the app. So in your particular case, if now after the firmware update it's not connecting to Lab, tell the app to forget the camera and tell the camera to forget the app, or just do that full reset and then load your settings back on. And then just reconnect fresh. Most of the time, that will pretty much solve your issue. The times where it doesn't solve the issue is going to be where maybe there was an OS update that changed something in the background and the app just hasn't been updated yet to support it. Or something like your permissions have changed because of an app update or an OS update. And when that happens, sometimes it's a matter of going into the system, making sure that like the Wi-Fi connection is allowed to connect even though there's no internet. Once you go through some of those steps, it should fix everything for Lab with you. Yeah, that should fix it for you. Will we see you at Cinegear this year? I don't think so. I don't know. I'm honestly not sure if we're doing Cinegear this year. Regardless, I don't think I'm going. I need a break from trade shows. Like I said, this entire April, I think I was home collectively like 4 days between taking time off, the 3 different trade shows and stuff. It's been brutal, and I'm not used to traveling that much anymore. I love traveling, but hotel rooms and events and stuff like that, I just need a break. So regardless of if we do Cinegear or not, I don't know if I'm going to be there. But obviously we'll let everyone know as we get closer to it. It's really not that far away though. So, does the regular S5 II have ProRes? No, you have to go to an S5 IIX for ProRes. And the original S5 II will not get ProRes. It won't get any of the stuff that the S5 IIX has. RW, great to see you back. Hello from the UK. Hello from the UK. Hello from the US. Well, thank you, YouTube. Harry, what anamorphic lens are you using today? Looks nice. Yes, I did want to talk about that. So, as you may notice, I am using anamorphic. I showed it before. I will show it again. Cool little parlor trick. Ooh, flares. Ooh, fancy. These are the lens I'm actually using right now is part of a 3 set that I have. Actually, do I have them back here? I think I do. Aha, I do. Aha. So these are the Sirui anamorphic lenses. These are the Saturn series. So this is a set that Sirui sent over to me and Matt Fraser so that we can play around with them. Obviously, if you're looking at anamorphic support, I don't think any other camera brand has the level of anamorphic support that we do. These are the 1.6 anamorphic lenses. And Yeah, this is it. This is also weird because I don't have autofocus on Anamorphic, at least yet. Sirui is now part of the Elmat Alliance, and they've showed autofocus anamorphic lenses. So yeah, this is the Saturn series. It comes in a set of 3 is the one that I have. It's the 35, 75, and I'm on the 50 right now. These are T2.9 lenses. So I am actually at closest focus distance. This is the closest focus distance that I can get to that lens. And I'm wide open. I'm at T29 right now. I've really liked these lenses. I get, some cool looking flares out of them. They have, there's obviously distortion in them. If you've ever shot anamorphic, you know what that is. But I've really liked these, playing around with them, both in a photo sense and also in the video sense, because I think they're, relatively sharp. I like the control I get out of them. I like that I can, on our cameras, I can rotate the mount 90 degrees, and then I can do vertical squeezes. So I can kind of mimic that medium format look with the S1R Mark II. But yeah, these are fun. And what I found, like I said at the beginning, I feel really dumb that I haven't done this sooner. If you plug your camera in over HDMI, in this particular case, like I'm using an S5 II, I am HDMI out. I have the anamorphic lens on the camera, and obviously it gives me a squeezed image. When I bring that into OBS, or in this case Streamlabs, I have a squeezed image. Since I stream through OBS and Streamlabs, I can then just go into the image, like the camera, and I can just tell it, hey, multiply my width in transform, multiply my width times whatever the D-squeeze is of this lens. So these are 1.6 anamorphics. So I just went in, did 3840 by 1.6 and got, was it 6144? And, no, 4166? I don't know. Whatever 1.6 is. I think it's 6144. Did that, and then it de-squeezes the footage. And then I just scale it back to the frame, and, obviously I'm fine with black bars on the frame. And now I can present in anamorphic. If I were to throw something like the Focus Pro on here, like a lot of people are doing, I could then add autofocus to it as well, so I could move. Now, granted, at this distance, it doesn't really help because I'm at the closest focus. But this now really lets me just kind of expand the look that I want to go for. I can do this anamorphic look, and as opposed to the 35mm field of view that we're normally shooting at, this is wider, but I get the 50mm compression out of it. So I get a much different look than compared. If I had like pixie lights out in the back, like pinpoints, you'd get to see the bokeh out of it. These are going to give me more of a proper anamorphic, or what people think of as a proper anamorphic look. So you're going to get, I know I showed this a couple of times, but I get the flares. Depending on what you like as far as flares go, it's going to change depending on the lenses, but I get some pretty nice looking flares, at least I think. I'm not really all that educated on anamorphic. I'm starting to get there. But yeah, it's a fun thing to do. So I figured, I literally was setting the stream back up today, like all my office and all my equipment, and I looked over and I had the lens sitting on the desk, and I'm like, let me see if I can get that to work. So after going through different monitors to de-squeeze in the monitor and then output, I looked up on YouTube, is there a way to do it? And actually, Tito Ferdinand's had an amazing video that literally walked it through, and within 30 seconds, I was like, I feel really dumb. So we were able to do it. So I'll put a link in the description if I can find it quickly. Or actually, I'll put it down in the chat to Tito's video. So if you have anamorphic lenses and you want to try this, it's super easy. But yeah, OBS anamorphic D-squeeze. It'd help if I could spell anamorphic. Yeah, here we go. Thank you. So we're gonna, I'm gonna drop this in the chat right now. Actually, yeah, this is actually a pretty good way to take a look at anamorphic work for streaming. So links down in the chat right now. So definitely check that out. Tito's an amazing creator. The Anamorphic cookbook. Yeah, it definitely worth a watch if you want to try to do stuff like this, because it's way easier now than it was years ago when I first tried to do it. Let's see here. FC, when following a subject using pan tilt head on a monopod, should I disable an image stabilization or leave IS on and turn E stabilizer off? I noticed panning is jerky in post with both on. Definitely turn electronic stabilization off. The full stabilization, you shouldn't have to turn it off, honestly. It should be fine, but yeah, you can just turn it off. If you're on a monopod, usually it's not that big of a deal to have stabilization, so you can flip it off. Once you start moving, that jerkiness is most of the time that jerkiness is because the electronic shutter's trying to correct for movement, and it doesn't have all of the axis information. So the frame will move, the stabilizer will move with it, and then EIS is also trying to correct. It's a lot going on. Probably not recommended to leave it on that way. So I'd probably just turn it all the way off, FC. Let's say overheating is user error. No, not always. I don't want it to sound like I'm, blaming a user on that. It's just understanding what the design bounds are for the product that you're going to use. The S1R2 is a 50/50 photo video tool. It is not designed to be a video first hybrid product. It does really good video because we're Panasonic Lumix. We will always throw as much video as we can in a product. It makes sense. It doesn't detract from the photo options in the camera. In fact, on the new design, you can literally just toggle a switch and now none of the video options are shown to you. You never have to flip that switch ever if you don't want to and you're a photographer. But overheating, in general, it's one of the things that I think, yes, we've always had a very good reputation about thermal management. When people want to push things farther and farther and farther, and you demand higher and higher res and higher quality performance, these are some of the things that do kind of show up in there. So we don't artificially limit the camera in any kind of recording modes that you want to do it in. You just got to be a little more aware of the environment that you're in for it. FC, I assume the GH7 does not have a moire filter. Can I assume that pixel to pixel mode will not perform well with moire pattern? Will not perform well with moire pattern than in full video mode. I'm not the best at moire conversations. I would talk with Dan Hopkins about that. But realistically, lower resolution sensors are going to be more prone to moire because there's less detail that is there, so you can run into some problems there. Oversampling or subsampling can help with it because now you're taking that what would be moire and then it's kind of sizing it down. An actual low-pass filter obviously changes the whole thing because now you're actually applying something in there for it. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. I honestly don't know. I don't film anything that or photograph things that I ever see moire in, so I would recommend chatting with Dan Hopkins maybe over on Facebook or some of the other platforms. I think he would be able to give you a little bit better information on that. Benjamin says, it would be nice if if S52 firmware could add 10-bit 1080p to MP4 and or allow 2-channel audio limit in MOV. My NLE doesn't like 4-channel audio. We have heard that conversation. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna get something like that in the camera. I know that system does just have the 4-channel system in it, but on the S1R Mark II, we changed it, and the GH7 it changed. I don't know if the S5 Mark II is going to get that. So, are there any multi-bay BLK22 chargers that Lumix recommends or happy with? I saw Tilta recently released one, but it has mixed opinions online. We don't have any third-party battery charger solutions that we recommend. It's more of a safety thing. We don't know how they're made. We don't know who makes them. We don't know what kind of thermal protections or charging protections they have in place, so I cannot recommend any of them. It is your product. I recommend just doing your research, talking to other people, seeing what other people's experiences are. But ultimately, just remember that we don't formally recommend any of that stuff. We recommend first-party battery sled, because we know and can guarantee that those are built the way they're supposed to be, and, you know, all of the safety stuff involved with it. Lewis, does the S1R Mark II and the S5 Mark II use the same L-squared processor? Not really. Engine revision happens all the time, so while they are both L-squared engines, you will have differences in subtle pieces that can make or break certain feature capabilities. As newer stuff comes out, better processing technologies, better processing tech, better understanding of how to use the processor, better, more efficient ways to work with the processor, the interconnect with the sensor, interconnect even in with the main board that's being used. All these things change what you can do with the processors. So while they're both L-squared engines in our cameras, they are different revisions for each camera. So I think these are, Matt, these are the neutral flare anamorphics. So yeah, these ones, I believe, so I was listening to one of Cam Mackey's videos about it. So the neutral flares will take whatever color of the light source that it is. So this is a more yellowed flare because of what's coming on from my phone light. If I were using like a blue LED, they'd look a little more blue. But yeah, these are cool. Yeah, so hopefully Art Vision, hopefully that helped you see what the flare was there. Brendan, just jumping in, any chance of getting vertical anamorphic D-squeeze in the future? I would love it if you leave that comment on this video after it's posted, and people thumbs that up. I want to see vertical anamorphic. I've been playing around with it. Matt and I have both been talking a lot about it. I even rotated the mount on a couple of these so that they're 90 degree. Yeah, it would be cool. Can you ask others in the chat how they have their flash setup function-wise? As a majority flash photographer, admittedly, it's quite annoying to deal with on a Lumix system. Yeah, I mean, Ken, definitely, it's one of the reasons why I like having the open chat here is that you can check with others in the chat as well to see, kind of what their experiences are with flash photography or any of the other functions that you have in the cameras. So I wanted to also take a minute because it looks like we're at the end of the at least the live comments right now. So let me put this lens away because I am terrible at putting lenses away. They kind of just sit on my desk and then yeah, I forget that they're sitting on the desk. So let's put this up. Max, will the S1R2 be able to record B-RAW over HDMI? We have stated that the S1R2 is going to support RAW over HDMI. We just don't have much detail about that at this point yet. So, where was the other setup? There it is. So, I wanted to also, more here. Have you guys talked about putting TTL flash via the S9 sensor metering yet? Have You guys talked about putting TTL flash via the S9 sensor media and Frame IO on the S9. We've had people ask about things like Frame IO and stuff like that, but honestly, it's not something Matt and I would know whether or not stuff like that could come to the cameras. Like I said, there are revisions of the different engines between different cameras. So for the most part, it means, you know, sure, most stuff you would think probably could get pulled back and forth just by thinking, oh, well, they're both L squared engines. But when you actually go into like, okay, this is this revision, this is this revision, sometimes those things, it's just the revisions were made because we wanted to add those things in there. And that unfortunately means that just there wouldn't be any ability to do it unless, you know, newer techniques were developed in code writing for it. So, Brennan says, will do. I've been flipping my PL mount Remus and just dealing with the wonky squeeze until it's resolved. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, definitely interesting seeing if you've ever shot with anamorphic. Normally you get the, you know, the kind of wide or the really tall and skinny people. If you rotate the lenses, you get a really short and stout person out of it. I might be able to, at one point, I could actually visually demonstrate this on the stream, because now I know how to use OBS and Streamlabs to demo that. It could be an interesting thing. It's just an involved process because you have to manually enter in the transforms. But yeah, we could take a look. All right. I wanted to pull up firmware update pages because we're always updating firmware on the cameras, and I think someone just asked, what about the new S9 firmware update? So yeah, April 14th, the S9 got firmware update. For those that don't follow, or maybe you haven't updated your cameras much, there were a couple different updates. So we did the 1.3 update that changed a couple of pieces with different Wi-Fi streaming functionalities and stuff like that. It brought it up to date with the kind of different standards throughout the different regions. And it did a pretty massive update to the boot on speed, so the turn on time. But then we did publish a pretty quickly after that a 1.4. There were like one or two little bugs that were brought up, so we were able to address those really quickly. But it's one of those reasons why, like, making sure that you keep your cameras updated, because we add features often, we improve performance often. These are things that, you know, you definitely want to try to make sure that you, you know, keep your equipment up to date with, because you may miss some cool things that we do and we add to products over time. Frame IO is so helpful in our workflow with clients. I'm going to do a video on it soon. The TTL flash we talked about a while back, using the camera meter. That would be great to add in lieu of a hot shoe. Yeah, so with the S9, to be honest with you, the S9 is never going to get flash support. Partially, there's no hot shoe, so there's no way to trigger a flash on that camera. The other is that it's an electronic shutter only, so you run into much slower readout speeds. You wouldn't be able to sync the flash with the readout speed for the most part and have it usable. If you're someone that, you know, that definitely needs flash, that's where like S5 Mark II, S5 Mark II X really come into play, since those are the cameras that have the more traditional flash inputs with it. For S1R Mark II, can we have LUMIX Flow log view assist? LUT view assist monitor set on, but my phone and the image is flat. Yeah, we have, we are aware of that comment. In fact, Matt and I have brought it up pretty much anytime we talk to anyone on that team about wanting to update so that we can get log view assist in Flow. At this point, not sure when or like what kind of timeline stuff like that would be, but it is being discussed. It has been sent over to them, so yeah, don't worry, we're on the same page. We want it as well. So I wanted to, obviously since I've got the anamorphic lens on the camera here, I wanted to use my S1R Mark II and actually show you guys a little bit of the anamorphic tools that we have in the camera, because if you ever wanted to play around with this, especially now that anamorphic lenses are getting so affordable in the market, there's some stuff that you want to kind of keep in mind with it. So I'm on my S1R Mark II here. I'm going to come in here and for this demonstration, I'm going to leave it in 4K 30 just because I don't want to screw up my switcher. But you have the option, depending on the lens that you're going to work with, to change, obviously, the aspect ratios. If you're using something like a 1:3:3 lens, a lot of times you'd be in like a 16:9 or 17:9 ratio. At least that's how you typically see a lot of this stuff being shown. If you're using 2x or 1.8 or 1.6, stuff like that, you can really shoot the anamorphic lenses in whatever aspect ratio you want, but we offer all these different available tools for the different outputs that you want to go for. And I can feel Matt Fraser kind of rolling in his house with how I'm describing this, but I'm trying to keep this ultra simple. If you're using things like, in this case, on the S1R Mark II, we've got 6.4K for open gate. You have the ability, when you're going to be selecting those modes, to go in and do a couple of things. To start with, I can go to my stabilization menu, and under the stabilization menu, you're going to see an anamorphic stabilization option. When I go into this, I pick the D-squeeze ratio of the lens that I'm using. So in this case, because I'm using 1.6 anamorphics, I'm going to pick 1.5 because we don't have the 1.6 in here. And Matt says, don't forget to show the 4.3 APS-C region. Good point. We even have, if I come in here, and I go, if I go to resolutions, you'll see I can do, I think on this one, it's the 4.7K. These will be APS-C. So this is the Super 35 region in 4:3 ratio. So this is proper for if you're using like Super 35 designed anamorphic lenses. This gives you the proper aspect ratio, the image area, so that you can end up using those lenses properly. But as I mentioned, I go into image stabilization, and I've got the ability to come in here and pick the closest to the lens that I'm using. In this case, even though I'm using 1.6 anamorphics, I'm going to select 1.5. It's going to be close enough for this. We do ask them. We want an actual 1.6 in the camera. Don't worry, we've asked them. But then what's cool now too with the S1R Mark II is I also have the ability to apply electronic image stabilization. When you do this, when you apply the stabilization effect for the anamorphic modes, your magnetic stabilizer is not going to compensate for the roll that happens. So if I'm rolling the camera, I'm not going to see the compensation for it. The reason for that is that with anamorphic, because you're squeezing the image, your rolling shutter or your jello is amplified. You see it way more if you're doing panning. So what we've been able to do on the S1R Mark II is we added in an electronic stabilization mode that allows me to come in here and I can apply up to high, which will narrow my field of view, but this tied with anamorphic is going to help correct that roll effect. So now it becomes more usable when I'm going to be hand holding this camera with an anamorphic lens. If I'm running and gunning with it, it gives you a nice leg up so that you're not always having to be on sticks with shooting anamorphic. And it's an added level over the fact that, well, for one, we give you stabilization for anamorphic lenses anyway. But we also have de-squeeze tools. So we also have the ability to come in and I can apply anamorphic de-squeeze. Now for this, let me turn off my proxy recording. So if I come back in, we also have anamorphic de-squeeze. Now this is specifically for the in-camera monitors, so the viewfinder as well as the rear screen. This lets me match the de-squeeze ratio to as close to the lens is that I'm using, so I don't have to look at that squished image. I can look at an image that's going to be much more close to how it's going to be delivered when I do my de-squeeze in post. And then now add that on top with like what we're doing today, where I can be sending the signal out and use, this is effectively what a monitor would be doing. I can use something like this to actually get that de-squeezed ratio and be able to present this way. So if you're using your cameras and say you're, using your camera like on Zoom calls and stuff like that, if you really want to blow away the rest of your team, and actually probably not, most of them probably won't care, let's be honest with ourselves, you could do something like this and actually hold like Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, like business meetings in anamorphic if you wanted to. And know that with our cameras, if you're going to be recording any of it, you've got the tools to handhold, to run and gun with it, to stabilize. Everything that you need is built into the camera alongside all of the actual like kind of exposure tools that we have in the LUMIX cameras. So things like being able to apply false color on the S1R2. So now I can really quickly change and adjust and make sure that my exposure is proper on it. It's a lot of, improvements that we've added in with the cameras. Let's see here. There was another couple more comments that came in here. Will there be an update to connect LUMIX cameras to DJI gimbals via Bluetooth? No clue. Let's see here. I got to jump back up in the chat here. Would it be possible to get a faster startup time on the S5 IIX with a new firmware like the S9, or is it the hardware that's the problem? Not sure. That is one that I did ask the team in Japan about, seeing as though we did it for the S9. Getting a noticeable delay when using the S1R2 with on-camera flash and TTL. The delay happens from time when I push the shutter to the time the flash pops. What flash are you using? Currently, as of today, we obviously have our flashes that are validated on our cameras, clearly, because we make them. But just recently, if you go on to our compatibility site, with the S1R Mark II, we have now added the Godox V10 for the Olympus system, and the X3 trigger as validated flashes. It doesn't mean that the other flashes are going to necessarily have support for it. It means that we have tested those two, and now it's up to Godox to make sure that what they know of how the V10 works is, kind of equal across their series. Let me see if I can pull that up. LUMIX compatibility. Let's go to accessories on S1R Mark II. Okay, so it is the Godox V1 0. So Matt, I was actually wrong when we were talking earlier about it. But yeah, so the Godox V1, basic operation, wireless as a commander receiver, those are all tested and checked. What we validate there is that the products have been confirmed to work with TTL flash, manual flash, and high-speed sync. The flash models outside of those two, we don't have information on yet as to whether or not they meet what Godox standards or what their modern coding is for it. But they work the way they're expected on the S1R2. So that might be something that helps you, Jamie. Yeah. Yeah. Regarding lenses for the S9, there's still a need for a proper pancake from Lumix, like we have. Please communicate that to Japan. We have. And yeah, as Matt pointed out, Sigma makes the I series, and the I series are pretty awesome. And yeah, Matt, yeah, the V10, not the V10. That was my bad. Can we get the ability to connect Bluetooth controllers or remotes? Personalized Bluetooth controller list. I don't know. We have. So if you're using Lumix Lab, Bluetooth does get you compatibility, or not compatibility. I'm thinking the other conversation. Lumix Lab does have the Bluetooth controller for triggering video, stills, long exposure, all that stuff. So it does already exist in the app. Sigma's offers are great, just not pancake enough. Please put the same team on this as produced the 1425 217. So Natura, you do also have to remember too, the 1425 and the 217 are incredibly old. They were incredibly simple, and they're micro four thirds designed. All of which things don't necessarily scale up into full frame, to maintain quality at least. But like Matt said, we have brought these conversations up to the engineering team. In the meantime, it's the Sigma I series that you've got. Speaking of de-squeezing, some of the FHD files on the S5 Mark II, maybe the slow and quick modes, get imported into Premiere with pixel aspect ratio slightly different than 1:1. Why? Should that be overwritten? Not sure. I haven't done much in 1080p, so, and I usually don't use slow and quick for this stuff, but I can take a look at it and then we can bring it up in a future stream. In any future updates or cameras, would you consider adding 96 FPS in Cine mode? It'd be interesting. That's another one of those that I'd say drop it down in the comment section after the video, or even now, just actually drop it in the comments, not the chat, because we can reference that back to the engineering team. Idea for a firmware update. Instead of having battery bars, use percentage. I think people would love that. Unfortunately, the battery that is used in the S5 Mark II, or the BLK22 battery, the new one, it doesn't have the communication pins needed to read out battery percentage. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't because the hardware is not there to do it. I don't know, but it tends to drain battery. Would be nice to use a simple clicker. Thanks for hearing out. Yeah, we can definitely, put the request in for sure. We'll always make those recommendations for it. Depending on the camera that you're in, I know that you can get like third party that you plug into the remote port, and that gives you Bluetooth control. So I do know that there are options out there. I just don't know if you would get it default built in with the Bluetooth on the camera. So, but yeah, we'll always press and ask about that stuff. Love my S1 battery. Having that percentage function, still use that camera in every shoot. Yeah, the S1, S1R, and S1H had really really cool setup to be able to do things like battery percentage and battery life readout on the camera. It doesn't mean that we're not doing any of that stuff still. It just means that it's not accessible to the camera's user interface. But those batteries are also a lot bigger, and honestly, the newer batteries are more efficient. So smaller size, yeah. DJ says, regarding the S1R2, can we make sure all hybrids in the future contain a photo video switch? Let's not go back to not having it. Yeah, I am fully on board with that logic. I really love the user interface on the S1R Mark II. I think just, the fact that all of my settings are default between each, and they all totally stay separate. My custom function buttons stay separate. But yeah, I really want it to be in every camera moving forward personally. Cool. So we are at 2 o'clock my time. Unfortunately, I have another meeting I have to get to right after this. But thank you everybody so much for jumping back in here, tuning in, asking a lot of these questions, giving us your feedback. As I mentioned, if you have suggestions, recommendations, stuff like that that you want to see in the cameras, drop them in the comment section after the video. I will put a link to the lenses, the lens setup that I used here for the Anamorphic stream. Excuse me, the Anamorphic stream. Oh man, excuse me. We will be back next Thursday at 2 p.m. So same time. Yeah. If you don't already, check us out over on Discord. It's discord.gg/LumixUSA. It's down in the description. Check us out over on Instagram. If you like this conversation, this video, give us a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to get notified when these live streams happen, make sure to turn the bell icon stuff on, turn on all notifications. And yeah, other than that, hope you all have a great rest of your day. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Get out there, create some cool stuff with your cameras, and yeah, see you all next Thursday, 2 p.m. Later.